Welcome to week 5 of Leadership Theory and Application. This week we'll be talking about group-centered themes. There are three types of group-centered theories that we'll be discussing this week: leader-member exchange theory, team leadership, and shared leadership. I'm mostly on this lecture going to discuss leader membership exchange theory, since team leadership and shared leadership is pretty commonly discussed in leadership, the book, and within leadership communities. So the leader membership exchange theory, or LMX, really discusses when leaders and followers are able to develop mature relationships to get the benefits that the relationship brings. It really is an interesting concept of the in-group and the out-group. I'm sure that in your own experience as both a leader and a follower, in pretty much any organization you can think of, you see the inside group and the outside group. Those people that are close to the leader get along with the leader calls on them more than anybody else. Kind of like in school, we used to call it the teacher's pet. I bet you can think of incidents when you were in a part of an organization, a school, even a church group or a group of friends, and those that are together almost like a clique of people, and then those on the outside, and how it felt to be inside or outside group members. This is an interesting dynamic on the sense that the leader has to be aware of the fact that they have an in-group and an out-group. Okay, so this diagram explains the LMX relationships. And so if you look at the leader's in the middle, and he has two different groups of people. Look to the right first, and this is the high quality exchanges, performance beyond contractual obligations. These are the in-group. These people are the one that the leader trusts the most. They are perceived as being loyal, very similar, committed. They're their in crowd. If you look at, say, a church organization, you would see that the pastor has a group of parishioners that seem to be in charge of all the committees. They're the ones he calls on when something happens. It's that tight group of organizational group. They're the ones that the pastor really does reach out to all the time. Then on the other end, you have those that are the out group. Those are the ones that the pastor doesn't call. Not the ones he perceives as just doing exactly what they're supposed to do. They show up on Sundays. I don't expect you to do more than that. If I have an issue, I don't tend to call you. I have lower potential. I consider you less motivated. And that group really does tend to feel like they're not a part of that organization. That's why you'll see people leave churches, because they don't feel like they're a part of the community. They feel like outcasts or the outer edges. And this applies to work all the time. I mean, think of it in your own situation. Who are the people that the leader surrounds them with all the time? If something happens, they call those people. And then the outside people tend to leave if they don't feel like they're a part of that group. They feel like outsiders. So let me give you an example of what I did to avoid this situation, because I did have a tendency, and I think it's a natural human tendency, to pull in people that you can trust, that you feel close to, and always rely on the same group of people, and not seeking out people that are on the outside who have a lot of skills and abilities, but you just don't, because you don't know them very well. So one way I handled this was I got to know everybody. I spent time with every faculty member. Right when I arrived at a school, I would sit one-on-one and ask them questions about their family, what they like to do, what interests them, what kind of goals do they have. If they could run the school, what would they do? So I got to know each person individually. And then I did something that was really kind of odd, but it kept me honest and straight. Many of you might have, if you've worked in schools, you know about the we call them ice cream sticks or the tongue depressors, those little sticks. And I would write the names of, on every stick had a different name of a different employee at my school, from custodians to the teachers to the aides to the secretaries, just all of the people that were integral members of my school community. Then what I would do every week, I would pull 3, and I would say those 3 people I'm going to focus on this week. It may not be my comfortable group that I could go to, but I am going to rely on these 3 people. I'm going to go talk to them. I want to include them. If we get freebies, that we give out free prizes to everybody, they're the first 3 that get the prizes. I recognize them. And then after that group of 3, after the end of the week, I put them aside and that into another little bucket, and then I pull another 3 for the next week. And so the teachers had no idea I was doing this, but that was the way I kept myself from having always the same inner circle of people. I would ask people questions so they knew that once in a while they would be asked, and that I would not ignore them, I'd not forget them. Those was the other way. When I did walkthroughs in classrooms, I made sure that those 3 teachers that week, I made sure to see them. And some weeks I would pull as many as 5. I'm going to meet with these 5 teachers this week, and I want to observe them. So I wasn't going into safe places. I was going into rooms where I wasn't totally familiar with the teacher, and just to build that one relationship, so I would not have an in-group and out-group. Now, this is another interesting concept, is the leadership making process. And how do you invest in people? And this is kind of the 3 phases that they go through, or the book discussed with Green and Bien. And so what they talk about, the 3 stages. The first was the stranger phase. This is a contract. You just know the person. You have a very formal relationship. They don't know your family. You don't know their family. I mean, it's back and forth. It's just they come in to do a job. You say hello, and I'm happy to do it. An example of that would be contract workers that come in for a very short period of time. You don't try to build a relationship with them, and you know they're leaving soon, and it's very formal. Sometimes you see this also as a relationship between you and your boss. If your supervisor, boss/boss is not there every day, you have more of a formal relationship. Then goes the acquaintance phase, and this is when you start sharing more. This is where you are talking about your own personal life. You're giving people an inside view of who you are, and you're asking for an inside view of who they are. And once you get to know them better, you want to increase the amount of responsibilities you give them. You want to build their leadership capacity more. You listen to them, you trust them more, but it means that you're stepping beyond just, hi, how you doing, to, hey, how's your sister doing? I understand she was in the hospital yesterday. So that's the acquaintance phase. Now, the partner phase is the 3rd phase I talk about. And this is when you are really beyond the personal and professional expectations. You are really a part of their lives. They're a part of yours. You are loyal to each other. You're close. I've seen this happen when I've watched a principal leave from one school to another, and a crew of her faculty and staff followed her because they had that relationship. They knew each other. She trusted them. They trusted her. This is the kind of relationship that you just keep for years and years and years. It's a networking situation that you have, that people know you, know your character, and trust you. Vice versa, you trust them. So these 3, if you think about it, if we go back to the in and out group, which group is in and which group is out, can you see where these 2 concepts connect? If you think of the out group, they're mainly in the stranger phase, maybe a little bit in the acquaintance phase, kind of in between, but your in group is your partner phase. Those are those people that are really a part of your life that you trust and work with all the time. All right, time to deconstruct strengths and weaknesses of LMX. The strengths, I think it recognizes the difference in relationships, in leadership in general, who we end up trusting and who we don't trust. It's very much a normal part of humanity, I think, that we end up having groups of people in and out. But being aware of that is really important, because you want to have a lot of quality relationships. It does have a lot of research that supports this and the positive impact of the leadership and its outcomes. The weaknesses, basically, it doesn't tell you how you can go from the in-group, out-group to the in-group and back and forth. It doesn't really talk about that, and it overemphasizes that the authority has those types of relationships, not really talking about the relationships between peers. So it talks about the relationship between, for example, teachers and the principal, not so much as between teachers and teachers, or principals and principals. And I really think if you don't push this hard enough, you can show a bias, and it can be very inequitable. And so it doesn't tell you really how to get out of that situation. So it tells you what's going on, but it doesn't tell you how to get in or out of this situation.